Right now, we have some early box office projections coming in for Disney and Pixar's latest animated film, Elio, which is set to release in a few weeks. And right now, it's not looking like it's going to be very good for it. And now, assuming this news turns out to be true and this is a financial disaster for Disney, I do think there's plenty of blame to be had at Disney for why this movie is doing so poorly. But there are some other elements to this that I think are out of Disney's control. I will get more on that in a moment. But first, let's look at this article from That Park Place that breaks down what's going on when it comes to the box office for this movie. Elio tracking disastrous opening box office projections as Pixar faces one of its worst debuts ever. And that's not necessarily even being hyperbolic either. If you look at the whole box office history of every Pixar movie dating back to the 90s, this could be one of the worst opening weekends, even not adjusting for inflation. Pixar's long troubled Elio is now tracking for a devastating domestic box office opening, with early projections from the Hollywood Handle estimating the film will pull in just $35 million to $45 million in its debut weekend. For most animated films, that would be a worrying start. For Elio, it could be catastrophic. And that's because, according to the Hollywood Handle, the budget for this movie was around $300 million. The article further goes into that, saying with a $300 million global budget, that means this movie probably needs to make around $700 million at the global box office in order to just break even. And that's because they're factoring in the budget for the movie as well as the potential ad spend on it. And also theaters get their cut of the box office. So when you factor all that in, they need to make $700 million. And if they're making less than $50 million domestically during its opening weekend, then that's not really a good sign for it, all things considered. In fact, with a opening weekend like that, it's not really outside of the realm of possibility that it ends its theatrical run only bringing in probably around $300 million at the global box office, well below what it needs to make in order to break even or even meet its budget. If current projections hold, Elio would notch the second worst Pixar debut in history, beating only Elemental, which opened at $29.5 million domestically. Elemental ultimately defied expectations and legged out to over $495 million worldwide. Whether Elio can repeat that kind of slow burn success is far from certain, especially given the lack of buzz and the film's chaotic production history. But even if Elio duplicated the success of Elemental, it still wouldn't be enough for it to break even given its massive reported budget. And that's something that I thought of when I heard about this news, because Elemental, as it pointed out in the article, opened to less than $30 million, but it turned out through good word of mouth. The movie actually had some staying power at the box office and had a pretty impressive run given how poorly the opening weekend was for it. So you can see worldwide box office, $484 million. Some people were saying because of that, the movie did end up turning a profit, but that's also ignoring the potential marketing spent for it. They just look at the reported budget for the movie, which was $200 million. And they figure like, well, okay, if theaters get half of it, then that means that it needed to make $400 million in order to break even. Well, no, that's not the case. You still have to factor in the marketing costs, not to mention international box office, which this made the majority of it from, tend to take more than just 50% of the box office. It's closer to, well, it depends on what country it is, but usually a good rule of thumb, it's 30 to 40% is what they take on. No, not 30 to 40%. 30 to 40% is what the studio gets. So this still fell below what it needed to make in order to be profitable, but it did do a lot better than what the opening weekend suggested it was going to do. And a lot of that was thanks in large part to the positive audience reaction to the movie. You can see on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 93%. So if Elio has $45 million, let's even round it up to $50 million during its opening weekend, but it has really strong word of mouth, families love it, and there's not a whole lot of competition out for some time, then perhaps it could actually have some staying power at the box office, because Pixar movies are not necessarily like other movies that I talk about on this channel, like the Marvel movies, for instance, which usually are front loaded and see everyone go out to see it in its opening weekend. And they have those steep second weekend drops. You might not necessarily see that when it comes to a Pixar movie. So it's possible through word of mouth, even if it has a $50 million opening weekend, it could have some staying power, but I mean, it's still quite a bit that it has to achieve to overcome a setback like $50 $50 million opening weekend. Never mind. I mean, that, and like I said, that's being generous towards it. They said it could be as low as $35 million unless these projections are already high. I mean, if it opens up lower than that, then I don't see how this movie could actually turn a profit. I mean, this is, it's pretty unlikely that it would turn a profit given this opening weekend, but if it was anything lower than this, if it underperformed those expectations, and even positive word of mouth, that I don't think will be enough to save this movie, and it probably would just be a financial disaster for Disney. This article then goes on to talk about the long production process for this movie, which is a large reason why the budget for it was so significant, and all that other stuff there. But one of the things about this that I think is Disney's fault for why this movie, or why they share some of the blame for why it potentially loses money for them. And obviously it's their movie, so they're responsible for it. They shouldn't have spent $300 million on an animated movie. I think that's a given right now, but also they've kind of conditioned their audience to not necessarily go and watch movies in theaters, but kind of wait for it to come out on streaming. And a lot of families who are looking at the cost of theater tickets, taking their kids out to watch a movie like this, and you factor in concessions and all that other stuff, you're looking at having to spend $100 for a night out for, like, let's say a family of four, maybe family, two parents, 3 kids, $100 or something like that. I mean, that's quite a bit for this sort of thing. So a lot of people are thinking like, well, why are we going to go watch it in theaters and pay that much? Or we can just wait a couple months and it'll be out on Disney Plus and we can just watch it at home. Or even if it's on a paid video on demand, you can spend $20 or so to rent it for the evening, and still you're saving a significant amount as if you're opposed to taking your family out to theater. So Disney releasing their movies so soon after it's being released in theaters, I think is also hurting them on this. But also it's just kind of an indicator that audiences are not necessarily interested in original IPs, or at least they're more reluctant to go out and support original IPs, which is something that I think is kind of disconcerting. A lot of people also talk about that, saying like, oh, why do studios only make sequels and remakes or stuff with established IPs? Why don't they make stuff original? Well, I mean, this is kind of the reason why, because whenever they try to go out on a limb and make something original like this, you see them lose a lot of money. Now, I don't think they should be willing to invest $300 million necessarily into an original IP like this, but if they were to give it, let's say, $100 million a budget or something like that, you could do pretty well with an animated film on a $100 million budget. And I'm not even talking about in the past. Nowadays, you can see movies of that type of budget still do really well. I think that's kind of what they should be doing, and it's something's unproven like that. So if it has a moderate success, then it can justify actually continuing on with it, and you build that fan base. So then you, when you want to do a sequel, maybe you could give that a bigger budget and you actually have some name recognition behind it. Right now, they're essentially throwing it in the deep end and not giving it a chance to actually grow before they decide like, oh, well, this movie's not going to work out because we made one movie, it lost money, so now we can pull it and never have to touch it again, or just try to forget about it, sort of thing. And I think that's kind of doing a disservice to it. But if audiences really want to see stuff that's more original and not just an endless stream of sequels and reboots and adaptations, then they kind of have to support original movies like this. But I'm not going to begrudge anyone for not going out to theaters to support this movie, because Disney has spent years alienating the family audience market, and also just hurting their own bottom line by conditioning the ones who had stayed around to not necessarily watch their movies in theaters, but to wait for it to come out on video on demand. So like I said, this is partially the audience fault for not being willing to try something new. But at the same time, with the ticket prices at theaters, I can't really blame them. And it's also Disney's fault for not necessarily cultivating a loyal fan base who wants to support them. They chase those people away. And this is the result of all that. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Do you think this movie is going to be another financial disaster for Disney, or do you think it actually could leg it out despite seemingly no enthusiasm surrounding it? Comment below. And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there, because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.